puppy came out of the winter trees with a bottle too old for any nursery and a plea too small for human ears. Cole Mercer had survived war silence and the guilt of losing his K9 partner. But when that trembling German shepherd dropped the bottle at his boot, the past opened like a door he had nailed shut. Rain came down over Port Angeles in thin silver needles, half water and half snow making the cedar branches bow and the gravel behind Cole Mercer's cabin shine like fish scales. The morning smelled of wet bark cold iron and the black coffee he had forgotten on the porch rail. Cole stood by the back fence with a post maul in his gloved hands, driving a cedar stake deeper into earth that had no intention of cooperating. He was 42 years old, tall broad through the chest, with short brown hair gone silver at the temples and gray eyes that seemed to measure exits even in his own yard. His canvas jacket was dark with weather across the shoulders. Beneath it, a faded gray Henley clung to the frame of a man who had learned discipline long before comfort, and still trusted it more. The fence did not need fixing that morning. A deer had not broken it. Wind had not thrown a tree across it. The sagging wire would have held another week, maybe another winter, if nobody cared to look too closely. Cole cared because the work gave his hands orders. Lift, strike, breathe, check the angle, strike again. A man could survive a surprising amount of life if he reduced it to tasks with clean edges. He had proved that after leaving the teams, after selling the condo near Coronado, after choosing this damp green edge of Washington, where the Olympic Mountains rose behind him, and the Strait of Juan de Fuca lay gray and restless below. People in town called him private. They said it kindly while buying propane or waiting for coffee at the Blackbird Diner. Cole let them. Private sounded chosen. It sounded better than hollow. On his left wrist under the cuff of his glove, a small brass buckle pressed against his skin. It had come from the working harness of Bishop, a solid black German shepherd who had once moved through dust and smoke as if the world had written its dangers in a language only he could read. Bishop had saved Cole during a raid Cole still remembered in flashes: a courtyard, a cracked blue door, heat blooming white. The weight of silence after the blast. The dog had gone forward when Cole hesitated, or maybe when Cole ordered wrong. The difference had ruined many nights. Cole swung the maul too hard. The stake split. He stared at it and said, "Outstanding, beautiful craftsmanship from a man trusted with expensive equipment." The rain gave him no sympathy. Then he heard a sound lower than the rain, not a bark, not a whine exactly. A small broken breath pushed through cold. Cole went still. The woods beyond the fence were crowded with cedar hemlock sword fern flattened by frost and the ghost-white trunks of alder trees leaning over the old deer path. He listened the way he used to listen when listening meant living long enough to regret it. Rain on needles, drip from the gutter, distant gulls toward the harbor. There, a dark little shape moved between two ferns. At first Cole thought it was a soaked crow dragging itself through brush. Then the shape stumbled into the open and became a German shepherd puppy, black and tan, no bigger than a folded jacket, his belly tucked from hunger and his fur clinging in wet points along his ribs. One ear stood as if reporting for duty, the other folded sideways with no shame at all. In his mouth he carried a small calf bottle yellowed with age. Rubber nipple chewed flat, the plastic scratched and cloudy as old ice. The bottle was too wide for him. It bumped against his chest at every step. He stopped, swayed, and looked at Cole with dark amber eyes far older than the little face holding them. Cole set the maul down slowly. "Easy," he said. His voice came out rough from disuse and weather. The puppy made 3 more steps. The last one was mostly faith. He reached Cole's boot, dropped the bottle on the gravel, and folded down as if someone had cut the strings that held him up. Cole caught him before his chin hit stone. The body in his hands was cold enough to turn his stomach. Not dead cold, not yet. He tucked the puppy inside his jacket against his shirt and picked up the bottle with his free hand. "You picked a miserable door, little man," he muttered, already moving toward the cabin. Warmth met him inside: wood stove, heat, coffee, wool blankets, old leather, and the dry cedar smell of the walls. The cabin was spare but clean: a table by the window, boots in a row, a locked rifle case in the corner, a narrow hallway leading to rooms too quiet for a man who pretended not to notice. Cole laid a towel near the stove and set the puppy on it. He checked gums, paws, ribs, belly. No obvious breaks, no blood. The fur smelled of milk, wet straw, a sour thread of fear, and beneath it, the unmistakable scent of another dog. A mother. Cole stopped moving for half a second. "So you did not come alone." The puppy stirred when Cole warmed goat milk and offered a little from a syringe he found in a drawer. He swallowed once, then again, then tried to launch himself at it with the ambition of a sailor denied shore leave. "Slow," Cole said. "You are not taking a hill." The puppy ignored him with impressive focus. Cole eased the syringe back. "Fine. Make me the obstacle. Everyone needs a hobby." A flicker moved at the corner of his mouth before he could stop it. As the pup warmed, his coat showed more clearly soft tan legs, black saddle forming down his back, and a white mark on his chest shaped like milk spilled from a careless hand. Cole dried him with a towel, feeling every rib. "You need a name," he said, then immediately hated himself for saying it. Names were not labels. Names were hooks in the heart. The puppy opened one eye and looked offended by the delay. "Temporary," Cole said. "Tucker, because you tucked yourself into my morning and destroyed my schedule." Tucker gave a tiny sigh which sounded very much like judgment. Cole wrapped him near the stove and reached for his phone. There were offices for this: dispatch, animal control. Claire Sutton at the veterinary clinic if she was not already elbow deep in somebody's goat. Other people, trained people whose lives had room for emergencies shaped like puppies. Behind him came a scrape. Cole turned. Tucker had dragged himself out of the towel. His legs shook under him, but his jaws found the old bottle again. He tugged it across the floor, not toward the stove, not toward the food, but toward the back door. "No," Cole said. "That is a full no." Tucker tugged again. The bottle knocked against the floorboards with a hollow tap. Cole crossed the room and lifted him gently, but the puppy twisted his head toward the door, trembling with a purpose too large for his body. Cole looked through the rain-streaked window toward the cedar woods. Beyond them lay Walker Orchard, a neglected strip of apple trees and sheds belonging to Raymond Walker, an old Navy mechanic no one had seen in town for weeks. People said Raymond had gone into winter care before the weather turned. People said many things when not saying them allowed supper to stay warm. Cole looked at the bottle in his hand. Near the base, under grime and milk crust, 2 scratched letters hid in the plastic. He could not read them yet. Tucker made a thin sound against his chest. Cole closed his eyes. Bishop had once gone forward because danger had spoken in a frequency humans missed. When Cole opened his eyes again, Tucker was still facing the door. "All right," Cole said quietly. "Show me what I am supposed to hear." He put the puppy inside his coat, took a flashlight, a coil of rope wire cutters, and 2 wool blankets from the mudroom, then opened the back door. Cold, wet air stepped into the cabin like a witness. Tucker's tiny heart beat against Cole's chest as he crossed the threshold and followed the fading tracks into the tree. The woods behind Cole's cabin held the storm close, and by the time he reached the first stand of old cedar, the rain had thickened into wet snow that clung to his jacket cuffs and gathered in the seams of his boots. Port Angeles was only a few miles away, with its marina lights and coffee shops and trucks crawling along Highway 101, but the forest made distance feel older than maps. Tucker lay inside Cole's coat, tucked against the warm hollow of his chest. the little body shivering in uneven waves. In Cole's right hand, the flashlight beam traveled over sword ferns. Slick roots dropped cones in the faint marks of a puppy's passage. Tiny paw dents, a drag line where the bottle had bumped, a smear in the snow where small legs had failed and somehow risen again. Cole had followed men through desert darkness, through alleys and compounds and places where every shadow carried a question. This trail hurt more. It was not clever. It was not hidden by skill. It was simply almost gone. The path bent downhill, crossed a narrow creek choked with ice at the edges, and climbed toward a rusted gate where Walker Orchard began. Cole had helped Raymond Walker fix that gate the previous fall after a storm dropped an alder over the hinge. Raymond had been 79, then narrow as a split rail with white hair under a battered Navy watch cap and a grin that arrived late but stayed honestly. He had told Cole he could still rebuild a carburetor, reload a shotgun, and burn toast with professional consistency. Nora, his German shepherd, had sat beside him through the whole repair, sable coat dark along the back, gold at the throat. Eyes calm and counting. She had not been a pet in the loose way some people use the word. She had been Raymond's clock, his guardrail, his reason to step outside on mornings when grief sat heavy after his wife's death. Then Raymond's truck stopped showing up at the diner. His porch lights stopped coming on. Harbor Light Rescue, people said, had helped arrange winter care. A generous thing, a kind thing. Cole had heard it from 3 mouths each, relieved by the sound of it. He had told himself the same story because the alternative required knocking on doors. Now Tucker pushed his nose out of Cole's jacket and pointed toward the dark line of the orchard. "That better not be commentary," Cole said. The puppy breathed milk-warm air against his shirt and stared ahead. Walker Orchard appeared through the trees like a place caught holding its breath. The farmhouse stood beyond 2 rows of old apple trees, white paint, weathered gray porch rail, sagging windows. Blind and black in the storm, the barn leaned but held. A pickup with a tarp over it sat near the machine shed. No smoke rose from the chimney. No boot marks led to the porch. Snow had laid a soft cover across everything, but it could not disguise the wrongness of new wire looped through the gate of the small pump house behind the orchard. Cole stopped 20 feet away. Tucker stirred harder against him, a faint whine trapped in his throat. "I see it," Cole whispered. The pump house had once held irrigation parts and old crates, the kind of place Raymond used to threaten to clean whenever someone laughed too hard. Its roof was patched with green metal. Its plank walls had gone black with rain. The latch had been wrapped twice with bright steel wire twisted tight by pliers. Not weather, not neglect, intention. From inside came a scrape, then a low sound no louder than a breath dragged across gravel. Cole set Tucker in one of the wool blankets beside the wall, sheltered from wind by his body. "Stay!" he said, then huffed once at himself. "Brilliant. Commanding the infant." Tucker tried to stand anyway. Of course he did. Cole touched 2 fingers lightly to the puppy's chest. "You have carried your end of the mission." The word mission tasted strange. He cut the wire. The first snap cracked through the orchard. Something inside shifted, and the low sound came again, not a growl made for attack, but a warning from a creature who had nothing left except teeth and the will to spend them well. Cole opened the door slowly. The smell hit first. Cold, straw urine, old wood, sour milk wound fear. He angled the flashlight toward the floor instead of straight ahead. The beam found torn feed sacks, a bucket tipped on its side, dark clumps of straw, then the far corner. Nora lay there, or what was left of the proud dog Cole remembered. Her sable coat was dull and flattened with grime. Her ribs made narrow shadows under her skin. One ear carried a torn notch at the edge. Her right hind leg lay twisted away from her body, swollen near the hock fur rubbed raw where a cord or wire had bitten and stayed too long. 3 puppies pressed against her belly, small and barely moving. One nosed blindly, one opened its mouth without sound. One lay still until Cole saw the faint rise of its side. Nora dragged herself forward, pain shaking through her front legs, and put her body between Cole and the litter. She could not stand. She guarded anyway. Cole lowered to one knee. "Easy, girl, I remember you." Her eyes fixed on him, amber and hard. Tucker made a tiny cry behind him. Nora's head snapped toward it. The puppy had crawled out of the blanket, pulling himself over the threshold, with the old determination that seemed less like strength than refusal. Cole did not stop him. Some moments were not meant for human hands. Tucker crossed the dirty floor inch by inch, belly low, and reached his mother's muzzle. Nora stretched her neck, trembling until their noses touched. She made one sound small enough to disappear and full enough to change the room. Not joy, not yet, recognition. One came back. Cole looked down at his own hands because tenderness without armor was sometimes harder to face than violence. Then he began. He let Nora smell the blanket before touching the pups. He moved slowly sideways, narrating in a low voice that asked for patience without pretending he deserved trust. "This one is cold. This one is mad. Good. Stay mad. It is useful." The smallest pup kicked when Cole lifted it, and he breathed for the first time in several seconds. He placed each puppy in the wool, tucked Tucker with them, and supported Nora's injured leg before lifting her. She growled once through clenched pain. Cole waited. Rain clicked on the tin roof. Tucker squeaked from the bundle. Nora's eyes moved to her son, then back to Cole. Her shoulders changed. Not trust exactly. Permission-wearing exhaustion's coat. Cole carried her through the orchard like something royal and ruined. His boots slid in the mud beneath the snow, his back burned. The puppies lay bundled against him in a rough sling, Tucker's small nose visible beside the chewed bottle. If anyone from town had seen him crossing Walker Orchard, a former SEAL with a wounded dog in his arms and a litter tied to his chest, they might have called it foolish. Cole would not have argued. Foolish had saved lives before. By the time he reached the cabin, his breath came hard and his hands had gone numb around Nora's weight. He laid her near the stove on blankets close enough for warmth and far enough from heat. The puppies found her belly with blind urgency. Tucker collapsed against her chest, one paw still touching the bottle. Nora watched Cole with the same question in her eyes. "What are you?" Cole knelt opposite her, hands open. "Still under review," he said. The old calf bottle rolled near his boot. He wiped grime from its base with his thumb, and the 2 scratched letters finally cleared in the firelight. R.W. Raymond Walker. Cole stared at them while rain tapped the windows, and Nora guarded her children in the room that no longer belonged only to him. Late afternoon settled over the cabin in a bruised gray wash, and the storm off the strait came harder. Rattling rain against the windows and packing wet snow against the cedar trunks above Port Angeles. Inside Cole's small living room had become something between a clinic and a ship after bad weather towels. Drying over chairbacks, a pot of water steaming on the stove, goat milk cooling beside a thermometer. Muddy boot prints pointing everywhere at once. Nora lay on layered wool by the hearth with her puppies pressed to her belly. Tucker slept nearest her chest, his tiny paw resting on the old calf bottle as if someone had assigned him guard duty and he intended to file a report. Cole stood at the sink, washing his hands for the 5th time when headlights swept across the wall. He knew the sound of Dr. Claire Sutton's truck before she knocked, mainly because it came up his drive with an engine complaint that had been ignored out of stubborn friendship. Cole opened the door. Claire stood on the porch in a navy rain shell over green scrubs. Brown hair pulled into a low braid, cheeks red from weather, a canvas medical bag in one hand, and a heated carrier in the other. She was 38, compact and steady, with hazel eyes that missed very little, and a mouth that looked built to say unpleasant facts clearly. She glanced past Cole and took in the whole room. "You found one dog," she said. The count changed. They were running a family discount. "Do not joke if you're about to make me triage your life choices." She stepped in without waiting for permission, which was one of the many reasons animals in Clallam County lived longer than pride. Nora lifted her head and released a low warning. Claire stopped 10 feet away, dropped her gaze slightly, and turned her body to the side. "There you are, beautiful. You have had a brutal day, and I am going to be useful. Annoying, but useful." Nora watched her. Cole stayed near the kitchen counter, close enough if Nora lunged, far enough not to crowd. Claire checked the puppies first, cold but alive, dehydrated. One stronger than expected, one dramatic enough to survive out of spite, in her professional opinion. Tucker opened one eye when she touched him and made a sound like a complaint submitted to management. "This is the traveler?" Claire asked. "Tucker. Temporary." Cole said nothing. Claire smiled without smiling. Naturally. The next hour moved by instructions. Warm, not hot. Drops, not gulps. Clean bedding. Rotate the weaker pups toward nursing before the strongest bullied their way in. Nora accepted broth only after Tucker stirred and bumped his head against her jaw, as if reminding her that mothers were not allowed to resign. Claire examined the injured leg last. She set a soft muzzle nearby but did not put it on. "She does not want to bite me," she said. "She wants me to remember she can." The wound around Nora's hock was ugly raw, where wire or cord had cut through fur and worried the skin for days. Infection had begun along the edges. The joint was swollen, painful, but not beyond hope. Cole's jaw tightened until the muscle jumped. Claire noticed. "Anger later," she said. "Hands now." He looked at her. "That's your bedside manner, only for men who look ready to punch a weather system." She gave Nora antibiotics and pain medication with quick, gentle hands, then shaved and cleaned the wound while Cole held a towel where Nora could smell it. During the exam, Claire lifted 2 fingers and gave a small downward signal to settle the dog. Nora's head lowered at once. Claire froze. Cole felt every sound in the cabin move farther away. "She knows hand signals," Claire said. "Try one." He did not want to. That was why he did. Slowly he lifted his palm, turned it out, then curled 2 fingers toward his chest, a recall signal old enough to live in muscle before memory. Nora's ears shifted. She gathered the puppies closer with her nose, then settled. Not perfect response, but response. Cole's hand dropped. "She was trained." "Yes," Claire said, "and not by someone careless." She reached for a scanner in her bag. Raymond chipped every animal after his beagle got into the Methodist rummage sale and ate half a lemon pie. He told that story like the dog had found religion. The scanner passed over Nora's shoulder. Nothing. Claire tried again, lower on the neck. A beep cut through the room. The small screen showed a number. Claire entered it into her phone, moving to the window for better signal. The circle spun, the stove clicked. Cole hated technology most when it looked calm. Claire's brow tightened. "That is strange." "Define strange." "Current record says female German Shepherd adult transferred to Harbor Light Rescue. Voluntary surrender due to owner incapacity." Cole looked at Nora, thin as winter curled around her litter. "Voluntary. That is the field." Does it say Raymond? Not on the current view. Claire backed out, searched another database, then called Paige Bennett, a veterinary data specialist who sounded on speaker like she had 3 monitors, too much tea, and no patience for corruption before dinner. Claire read the chip number. Paige went quiet. "Give me 10 minutes if it is clean," she said. "Give me more if someone has been decorating the truth." The call ended. No one spoke for a while. Cole fed the smallest puppy. Claire wrote dosages on the back of an envelope because his notepad had been sacrificed to wet straw. Nora watched them both less with trust than with an exhausted question she refused to stop asking. Near dusk, Paige called back. Claire put the phone on the table. "Found the original," Paige said. "Registered name Nora. Female German Shepherd. Primary owner Raymond Walker. Emergency veterinary contact Dr. Claire Sutton. Restriction note added 2 years ago. Support animal for veteran owner. No transfer without veterinary confirmation. Owner interview and independent witness." Claire's face closed. Cole rested both hands on the chair back. "New record. Harbor Light Rescue 6 weeks ago. Voluntary surrender witnessed by Harbor Light staff." Paige paused. Keys clicked faintly in the background. "There is more. 48 hours before that transfer, Raymond requested a hold on ownership changes. Reason entered. Owner believes rescue agency is collecting pregnant working dogs under false pretenses." The cabin seemed to shrink around the words. Tucker shifted in his sleep and dragged the bottle closer with his paw. Paige continued, voice lower now. 3 days after the hold, the transfer went through anyway. No prenatal care logged, no whelping record, no foster location. Claire picked up the old calf bottle and rubbed the grime near the base. RW showed in uneven, scratched lines. "Raymond's initials," she said. "His wife Ruth used to mark everything after he kept losing tools in places tools had no business being." Cole looked out into the storm toward Walker Orchard. A mother dog locked away, puppies near death. A vanished old man, a rescue record that smiled while lying. Before he could speak, tires sounded on the drive, smooth and careful, too clean for the mud. A dark SUV stopped beside the woodpile. On the door, a white logo showed a lighthouse beam over a paw print and the words, "Harbor Light Rescue." Cole watched a man step out carrying a leather folder under one arm. Nora lifted her head before the knock came and every hair along her spine rose. Evening rain glazed the porch boards outside Cole Mercer's cabin, and the cedar woods behind the house stood black and crowded, their wet branches shining whenever lightning flickered beyond the Olympic foothills. The man at the bottom of the porch steps looked untouched by all of it. Wade Carver was 55, medium height, neatly built with silver blonde hair combed back from a smooth forehead. Pale blue eyes and a charcoal rescue jacket bearing the Harbor Light logo over his heart. His boots were practical, expensive, and nearly clean despite the muddy drive. He carried a leather folder like a priest carrying a hymnal, and when he smiled, the expression had warmth arranged in careful layers. Cole opened the door before Wade could knock. "Mr. Mercer," Wade said as if they had missed each other at a committee breakfast. "I am Wade Carver, director of Harbor Light Rescue. I understand you have had quite a difficult day." Cole filled the doorway. "You understand that from the porch." Wade let the question pass with a patient sadness. "I am here about a German Shepherd female and her litter. They are under our legal care. When animals are removed from a property without notification, especially animals with medical needs, the situation becomes complicated." Behind Cole, Nora made a low sound. Not loud. Enough. Tucker woke near her chest and nosed blindly for the old bottle. Cole did not look back. "They are under veterinary care. I am relieved to hear it. May I step inside and verify their condition?" "No." Rain ticked from the porch roof. Wade's smile paused, then recovered. "I respect your caution. Truly." Rescue work brings out strong feelings, particularly in people with protective instincts. Cole watched him. Men like Wade liked soft rooms. They filled them with words until sharp things looked impolite. "Dr. Sutton can verify the condition," Cole said. "You can talk to her." Wade's eyes shifted past him, not rudely enough to call it rude, just enough to inventory warmth blankets the edge of Nora's body near the stove. "Dr. Sutton is an admirable veterinarian. She can also become emotionally involved. Raymond Walker was a longtime client, I believe. That a problem? Objectivity matters, Mr. Mercer. Raymond voluntarily surrendered Nora weeks ago when he entered winter care. He knew he could not manage a pregnant dog alone. Painful, yes. Responsible also, yes." Cole stepped onto the porch and pulled the door mostly closed behind him, leaving a narrow gap. The cold rain hit his hair and ran down his collar. He preferred it. It kept his hands from doing anything regrettable. Nora was locked in a pump house from the outside. Her leg was injured. Her puppies were dying. Wade lowered his gaze, the picture of a man grieved by misunderstanding. Transport failures happen. Foster arrangements fall apart. A frightened animal can return to familiar property and hide. Rural rescue is messy, as I am sure you can imagine. With new wire on the door, I cannot speak to every detail before reviewing it. Convenient. Wade's mouth tightened by one small degree. I know you have a military background. People who have lived through trauma often become highly alert to patterns. Sometimes that saves lives. Sometimes it turns uncertainty into accusation. The words were calm. The knife inside them was not. Cole felt the old part of himself rise, the trained stillness, the measured breath, the unwilling inventory of Wade's throat hands balance. He let rain run down his face. "You want to try another version of that sentence?" Wade held up one hand, palm open. "I am not your enemy." Nora disagrees. From inside came a small scrape. Tucker had pushed himself out from under Nora's chin and dragged the calf bottle across the floor. It knocked once against the leg of the coffee table, a hollow plastic sound that somehow carried through the gap in the door. Wade heard it. His eyes moved. Cole watched recognition cut through the man's smooth face before the smile could stop it. Not confusion, recognition. And under it, fear. The expression lasted less than a breath. "Old farm supplies," Wade said. "The Walkers had a great deal of them. Ruth saved everything, as many women of that generation did." Cole's pulse slowed. "I did not say Ruth." Wade looked back at him. Rain slid down the polished shoulders of his jacket. "Raymond spoke of her often. We try to honor the whole person when helping elderly owners transition." Transition. Cole tasted the word and disliked it. That is an elegant word for taking a man's dog. "Be careful, Mr. Mercer." The warmth left Wade's eyes, though his mouth held its careful curve. Possession of surrendered animals can become a legal matter. "Bring a deputy." "That may not go as you hope. Hope is not the tool I am using." For the first time, Wade looked at Cole as a man rather than an obstacle. Maybe he saw the faded Henley, the brass buckle at Cole's wrist, the shoulders set by years of carrying more than gear. Maybe he saw that fear worked differently in some people after it had spent too much time with them. Wade closed the folder slowly. "I hope you do not make this harder than it needs to be." Cole leaned forward just enough for the porch boards to creak. "Funny, I was saving that line for you." Wade descended the steps, opened the SUV, and paused before getting in. Through the narrow gap in the cabin door, Tucker had managed to crawl into sight, the bottle crooked in his mouth, his whole body trembling from the effort. The puppy stared toward Wade as if even 7 weeks of life had been enough to form an opinion. Wade's face changed again. This time his fear did not hide quickly enough. Then he got into the SUV and backed down the drive with the clean precision of a man leaving no tracks except the ones weather could erase. Cole stood in the rain until the taillights vanished. When he went inside, Claire was beside Nora, one hand steady on the dog's shoulder. "He knew the bottle," Cole said. "I saw." Claire's voice was flat. "He also knew Ruth marked things. That means he has been through Raymond's house or someone told him too much." Tucker dropped the bottle and collapsed against Nora, worn out by his own protest. Cole crouched and turned the bottle so RW faced upward. It looked harmless on the floor, an old tool made for feeding small lives. Harmless things could carry history. Sometimes they carried charges. "What are you hiding?" Cole whispered. The cabin did not answer. The storm did tapping at the windows with wet fingers. Later, after Claire drove back to the clinic for more medication and promised to return by morning, Cole sat at the kitchen table with Page's printed microchip records spread before him. Nora slept uneasily. The puppies breathed in little broken rhythms. Tucker woke twice to drag the bottle closer to Cole's boot as if distance from the evidence offended him personally. Around 9, another set of headlights softened through the rain. Not the polished glide of Wade's SUV. This vehicle coughed, stopped, started again, and finally parked crooked near the woodpile. Cole opened the door. A woman stood on the porch holding a faded Harbor Light tote against her chest with both hands. Linda Parker was 63, short and round-faced, with silver-brown curls escaping from a wooden clip rein. Spotting her green quilted coat and guilt sitting openly in her eyes. "Mr. Mercer," she said, "my name is Linda Parker. I used to volunteer with Harbor Light." Cole did not move aside. Linda looked past him only once toward the glow of the stove and the shadow of Nora's ears. Her face tightened with pain. "I heard Nora was found," she whispered. "I think I have papers that might matter, and I think I have been quiet too long." Behind Cole, Tucker nudged the bottle. It rolled once across the floor and stopped against the threshold, pointing toward the woman with the tote. Rain turned colder after dark on the ridge above Port Angeles, tapping the cabin roof with the nervous fingers of a storm deciding whether to become snow. Linda Parker stood inside Cole's doorway with her faded Harbor Light tote clutched to her chest, her cheeks wet from weather and from something weather had only helped reveal. She wore a green quilted coat, brown corduroy pants tucked into mud-spattered boots, and a plum cardigan buttoned wrong at the throat. The sort of mistake made by hands that had been rehearsing an apology for too many miles. Cole let her in because Nora did not growl when Linda entered. That mattered more than the logo on the tote. Nora lifted her head, amber eyes following the woman across the room, but after one long look, she rested her muzzle near Tucker again. Linda saw the injured leg, the shaved patch, the 4 puppies pressed close, and put one hand over her mouth. "Oh, Lord, have mercy," she whispered. It was not theatrical. It was not tidy. It sounded like a woman finding a bill she had delayed paying and discovering interest had been added in suffering. Cole closed the door. "You said you had papers." Linda nodded. She lowered herself into the chair nearest the entry, still holding the tote as if it might escape. Harbor Light was not always this. Her voice shook, but she forced it forward. In the beginning, it was church basements, bake sales, old dogs. Nobody wanted cats with opinions and volunteers who smelled like bleach all winter. Ruth Walker used to bring soup. Raymond fixed our furnace twice and refused a receipt both times. Wade came later. He had donor contacts, a website, photographs that looked like Hope had learned graphic design. We thought that meant help. She opened the tote. Inside were folders, receipts folded into envelopes, printed screenshots, transport logs, and handwritten notes on yellow legal paper. Not secret agent evidence, human evidence. Wrinkled, coffee-stained, half-organized by someone who never quite knew whether saving it was brave or disloyal. Pregnant mothers started disappearing from the foster board, Linda said. Working breeds mostly. German Shepherd's labs, some Belgian Malinois. The pretty ones brought donations. The puppies brought more. Older owners were told they were loving their animals by stepping aside. Veterans were told the same thing with softer words. Tucker woke and made a small noise from the blanket. Linda flinched as if he had named her. I asked questions. Wade said I was burned out, sentimental. He said modern rescue needed metrics. I let that make me quiet. Cole looked down at the folder in his hands. Quiet is different from gone. Linda swallowed. I am trying to believe that. The second visitor did not come to the door. Cole saw him at the end of the driveway 40 minutes later, a narrow shape beyond the porch light standing in sleet, beside an old pickup with one headlight dimmer than the other. The man wore a black rain hat, a tan work coat gone soaked at the elbows, and a Vietnam Veterans of America pin fixed crooked above the pocket. Walter Briggs was 71, thin, pale, and stiff in the way of men who had learned not to ask chairs for mercy. In one hand he held a leash red once, now footed toward rust. Linda called me, he said when Cole walked down. Said you found a shepherd tied to Harbor Light. Cole nodded. Walter stared toward the cabin windows where stove light glowed gold against the glass. I had Molly. Shepherd mix, bad hips, one eye going cloudy, still knew when the mailman was lying. His mouth twitched, but the humor did not hold. Wade told me she could get winter medical foster, said I was not abandoning her, said a good handler knows when to pass the leash. He lifted the worn strip of nylon. His knuckles looked too large beneath the skin. She never came back. Rain slipped from the brim of his hat. Cole said nothing because some griefs did not want a hand on the shoulder. They wanted a witness who would not hurry them into feeling better. Walter pulled a folded paper from inside his coat. Copy of what I signed. Maybe it matches something in her bag. Maybe it is only proof I was a fool. Fools do not usually keep proof. Walter glanced at him. Soldiers do. We keep all sorts of things that accuse us. The words hit close enough that Cole felt the brass buckle at his wrist like a pulse. He took the paper. Walter did not come inside. He looked once more toward the cabin, then turned back to his truck. If you find Molly, he said almost too low to hear, tell her I did ask. After he left, Cole sat at the kitchen table with Linda's folders, Walter's surrender form, Page's printed records, and the old calf bottle near his right hand. Claire returned just after 10 with more antibiotics, 2 sandwiches, and the expression of a woman who had already decided no one in the room had eaten properly. She listened while Linda repeated everything, then photographed documents and sent copies to Page. Tucker, apparently dissatisfied with the pace of human justice, dragged the bottle from Nora's blanket to the table leg, lost his grip, sneezed, and tried again. Not every object is a legal argument, Cole told him. Tucker looked at him with watery-eyed disappointment. Claire picked up the bottle to rinse dried milk from the nipple. Do not scrub the initials, Linda said softly. Ruth carved those on everything. Raymond said she marked objects so he would stop donating his tools to the universe. Claire turned the bottle under the sink light. Cole. The tone changed the room. He stood. Claire held the bottle at the base, where the plastic looked slightly thicker than it should have. A seam circled the bottom, nearly hidden by scratches. Was it made like that? Cole asked. Linda shook her head before Claire could answer. Ruth bought those bottles by the dozen. No false bottom. Cole dried his hands, took a thin utility blade from a drawer, and worked the point into the seam. The plastic resisted, then gave with a brittle click. Tucker barked once from the blanket, tiny and outraged. Nora lifted her head. Cole eased the base free. Inside the hollow bottom, wrapped in wax paper and tied with dental floss, was a narrow strip of folded stationery. For a moment, the only sound was the stove shifting in its iron body. Claire covered her mouth. Linda began to cry silently. Cole lifted the paper with 2 fingers and unfolded it. The handwriting was shaky, each letter pressed hard as if dragged out through pain. It read, Coho View Motor Inn, laundry room behind office. If Nora's boy lives, somebody listened. By midnight, the storm over the Olympic Peninsula had become a cold white blur, and Port Angeles below the ridge was reduced to scattered lights smeared behind sleet. Cole's cabin held a different weather entirely. Heat milk, antiseptic, damp wool, fear. The strip of paper from the bottle lay inside a plastic sleeve on the kitchen table, weighted by Claire's phone so no draft could touch it. Coho View Motor Inn, laundry room behind office. If Nora's boy lives, somebody listened. Cole had read the words 4 times. They did not become larger. They did not need to. A place, a room, a wager placed by an old man on a puppy too small to carry more than smell and stubbornness. Claire called Deputy Megan Walsh directly, not dispatch. Because dispatch can be fine, she said while dialing, and fine is not what this requires. Megan arrived 30 minutes later in a brown county parka, black knit cap pulled low, rain beating on the shoulders. She was 46, square-jawed, with short black hair threaded silver at the sides, dark eyes, and the kind of stillness that made people consider their next sentence with sudden care. A red notebook was already in her hand when Cole opened the door. "I am off shift," she said, stepping inside. "So this should be unpleasant enough to deserve boots." Her eyes moved over Nora, the puppies, Tucker, Linda, Claire, the folders, and the bottle parts laid on a clean towel. She did not whistle. She did not swear. She took off one glove. "Show me." Claire handed her the sleeve. Megan read the note once, then again, more slowly. "Who opened the bottle?" "Cole," Claire said. "I was standing here." "Who touched the note?" Cole raised 2 fingers. "Me." I did not know the puppy had become evidence until after he used the bottle as furniture. Megan looked at Tucker, who was asleep with his chin on Nora's front paw, and no interest in procedure. The deputy's mouth moved almost into a smile, then settled back. "Reasonable." Linda pushed the tote forward. "I have old records. I should have brought them earlier." Megan looked at her for a long second. "Earlier is gone. Put them here." The next hour turned the table into a map of damage. Linda's transport logs showed dogs moved under vague labels: respite, foster, medical, hold. Private sanctuary, donor placement. Walter's surrender form used language nearly identical to Raymond's disputed documents. Page sent original microchip restrictions, time-stamped edits, deleted notes recovered from an archived veterinary portal, and a line that made Claire's eyes go flat. Nora's litter had been assigned a fundraising campaign title 2 weeks before anyone admitted she was pregnant. Megan photographed everything and spoke very little. That was her gift. She let facts stack until denial had no chair left to sit in. "I have had Harbor Light on the edge of my desk for a year," she said at last. Claire looked up sharply. "A year." Complaints came in soft. Shame, grief, bad paperwork. People signed forms. Wade had donors. The sheriff liked public-private partnerships because those words sound free until the bill comes due. Linda pressed both hands to her face. "I gave him names." Megan's voice did not soften, but it did not cut either. "Then help us give them back." Cole stood by the stove, one hand resting near Nora's blanket. He wanted motion. He knew enough about himself to distrust that. Motion felt righteous because it drowned thinking. Bishop had died in the space between urgency and judgment. Cole forced himself to listen as Megan called property records, then a motel contact, then the night dispatcher with a tone so official it could have hung a badge on the wall. Outside, wind shoved sleet against the glass. Inside, Tucker woke, nosed the hollow bottle base, and dragged it toward Cole's boot. The note was gone from it now, but the puppy stayed with the empty shell as if the job had not ended just because humans could read. Megan's phone buzzed while she was copying the chip data. She checked the screen and went still. Coho View filed a private road exemption for tonight. Large vehicle departure before storm closure. Cole lifted his head. Who filed it? Harbor Light Rescue. Emergency animal transport. Claire's face hardened. They do not have me. They listed veterinary supervision. Then they invented one. Megan closed her notebook. I am requesting backup and animal control. Roads are bad. Response will be slow. Cole reached for his coat. Megan did not look surprised. No. You need someone Raymond may recognize. I need people not creating problems I cannot put in a report. I know the orchard. I know Nora. If Raymond is scared or drugged, a familiar face matters. Megan's eyes narrowed. Former SEALs are not a substitute for warrants. Never said they were. Linda stood pale but upright. I know Harbor Light's storage layout. Wade rented overflow space near Coho View 2 winters ago. I helped label shelves. Claire looked toward Nora. The dog was weak, but her eyes had fixed on the humans with a comprehension that made the room feel less private. The puppies were stable for now. The cabin's power flickered once. Claire swore under her breath. I am bringing the mobile truck, she said. If there are animals there, they will need heat. Nora and the pups go in the rear compartment. I can keep them warmer there if the cabin loses power. Cole opened his mouth. Claire pointed at him. Do not argue veterinary logistics at me in my own boots. Nora tried to lift her head higher when Cole crouched beside her. Tucker pushed against the bottle base, too tired to stand and too stubborn to stop participating. Cole touched 2 fingers to the puppy's chest. I am coming back. The words were not for Tucker alone. They were for Nora, for Bishop, for the part of himself that had confused leaving with loss for too long. Megan watched him, then zipped her parka. You stay behind me. You follow instructions. You do not freelance your way into my paperwork. Understood. Say it like you know what it means. Cole met her eyes. I will stay behind you. Linda grabbed her tote. Claire lifted the warmed carrier and began moving with the quick precision of a woman who knew mercy required straps, heat pads, and labels. Outside, the storm thickened, hiding the road below the ridge. Inside, Raymond Walker's note waited in its sleeve. No louder than paper, heavier than any order Cole had carried. When Megan opened the door, cold rolled through the cabin. Tucker gave one thin whine from the carrier as the hollow bottle base tapped against the towel. Cole stepped into the night behind the deputy, and the whole dark county seemed to lean toward Coho View Motor Inn. Snow drove sideways across Highway 101, making the world beyond Deputy Megan Walsh's windshield appear and vanish in narrow sweeps of wiper blades. The strait lay somewhere to the north, black and restless behind the storm. But Cole could not see water, only darkness, white streaks, and the red pulse of the emergency bar throwing blood-colored light over the wet road. He sat in the passenger seat with both hands flat on his knees, feeling the old urge to prepare for impact. Behind them, Claire's mobile veterinary truck followed close, its heated rear compartment carrying Nora, the puppies, and a very angry Tucker wrapped in towels around the old bottle base. Linda rode with Claire, partly because she knew the layout of Harbor Light's rented storage spaces, partly because guilt had finally become heavier than fear. Megan drove without wasted motion. Her red notebook rested closed in the console between them. Remember, she said, you are here because Raymond may recognize you and because Claire may need help with animals. You mentioned. I repeat important things to men who look calm for suspicious reasons. Cole almost smiled. Almost. Fair. A neon sign appeared ahead through the snow, blinking blue and white, Coho View Motor Inn. Half the letters were out. The remaining ones flickered over a low strip of motel rooms arranged around a cracked parking lot. The office window glowed yellow. Beyond the main building, tucked behind a cypress hedge, stood a concrete laundry room and a metal storage shed with a roll-up door. A white box truck idled near the shed, its exhaust smearing into the storm. No rescue logo, no markings. "There," Cole said. "I see it," Megan answered. She parked behind a row of dripping shrubs, radioed dispatch with her location, requested backup animal control and medical assistance for a possible vulnerable adult. Her voice stayed steady. Not cold, better than cold, useful. They stepped into the storm. Snow slapped Cole's face and melted down his collar. Claire pulled in behind them, hood up, medical bag across one shoulder. Linda got out slowly, holding the tote like a flotation device. "Office first," Megan said. The bell over the motel door jingled with a tired metal sound when she pushed inside. Warm air rolled out, smelling of stale coffee, carpet cleaner. Old cigarettes trapped in curtains, and beneath it something medicinal. The man behind the counter was in his early 30s, thin, with a patchy beard and a Coho View sweatshirt stretched over nervous shoulders. His name tag read Evan. He stood too quickly. "We are closed for weather." Megan showed her badge. "Deputy Walsh. Emergency welfare check." Evan's eyes jumped to Cole, then Claire, then Linda, and found no landing place. "I do not know anything about animals." Megan set a paper on the counter. "I have not asked about animals." His mouth shut. Somewhere behind the office wall came a cough, old, dry, human. Cole felt the sound strike through him. Megan heard it too. Her eyes moved once toward the hallway door. "Room behind the office." Evan's hands opened and closed. "That is laundry storage. Open it." "I do not have the key." Megan leaned forward slightly. Her voice stayed calm enough to freeze the damp air. "Choose the next version carefully." Evan looked toward the window, toward the storm, perhaps toward the box truck waiting where truth was being loaded before morning. Then he reached under the counter for a key ring. "He said it was temporary," Evan whispered. "He said Mr. Walker got confused." Megan did not answer. She followed him down a side hallway lined with stacked towels, broken lamps, and detergent boxes. At the end stood a door with a deadbolt on the outside. Cole stared at the lock. He had seen cages with kinder hardware. Megan photographed it before Evan opened it. The room inside was overheated and closed. A laundry storage space cleared badly into a bedroom. A narrow bed, a plastic chair, a humming space heater, curtains taped over a small window. On the table beside the bed sat 2 orange prescription bottles, a paper cup, and a stack of documents clipped under a pen. Raymond Walker sat on the edge of the bed in a robe that did not belong to him. He was smaller than Cole remembered, the old Navy mechanic, folded by hunger, fear, and medicine. White hair stood in wisps around his skull. His hands trembled in his lap. His eyes were cloudy with exhaustion, but not empty. Megan stepped in first. "Mr. Walker, I am Deputy Walsh. Do you know where you are?" Raymond turned his head slowly. His voice was rough as a dry hinge. "Bad motel." Cole let out a breath he had not known he was holding. Megan's face softened by one careful degree. "That is accurate enough." Raymond's gaze moved past her and found Cole. For a moment he only stared. Then his mouth shook. "Mercer." "Yeah, you brought the Navy." "Just bad weather and a veterinarian." A broken laugh escaped Raymond, then became a cough. Claire moved in, checking his pulse, pupils, breathing, and the medication bottles. Megan photographed the room, the lock, the papers, and the table. Cole stood near the bed with his hands useless at his sides. Raymond gripped the sheet. "Nora, alive," Cole said. Raymond closed his eyes. "Pups, alive. Tucker found me." The old man's face broke, not loudly, not for anyone's comfort. Tears slipped down the deep lines beside his nose. Cole took the old bottle base from his coat pocket. Claire had let him carry it because he had looked ridiculous enough already. He placed it in Raymond's lap. Raymond touched the scratched RW with his thumb. "Ruth's bottle?" he whispered. "She said every small thing needed warm milk and an audience." Linda made a small sound from the doorway. Raymond turned, grief passed between them plain and old. "Linda, Raymond, I am sorry." He looked at her, tired beyond anger and still carrying enough strength to refuse a scene. "Be sorry after. Help now." Megan picked up the clipped documents. "What did Wade Carver want you to sign?" Raymond swallowed. "Care reimbursement, Nora surrender, orchard management, then sale authority. Said I owed him, said I was confused, said no judge would leave animals with an old man who forgot pills. Did you sign? Not the orchard." He tried to lift one hand and failed. "Not Nora, not willingly. He had papers already marked. I wrote the note when one of his boys left my bag. 5 minutes. Pocket knife. Ruth's bottle had a hollow I made years ago for spare cash. She said that was the most Raymond thing I ever did." A truck door slammed outside. Cole turned. Through the taped window came the thin, frantic bark of dogs. Megan was already moving. "Claire, stay with Raymond." Claire looked toward the lot. "If there are animals, I need to move." Then 30 seconds behind me. "Linda, you are with Claire." "Cole. Behind you," he said. They went back through the hallway into the storm. The white box truck near the shed had its engine running harder now. 2 men were carrying wire crates toward the open rear doors. Wade Carver stood beside the roll-up door in a long charcoal coat, speaking into a phone, snow settling on his shoulders like the weather still believed him innocent. He turned when Megan crossed the lot, and his smile arrived a half-second too late. The storm around Coho View Motor Inn had erased the edges of the parking lot, leaving only the glow of motel windows, the idling white truck, and the blue-red flash of Megan Walsh's patrol lights cutting through the snow. Wade Carver slipped his phone into his coat pocket as the deputy approached, arranging concern over his face with practiced care. "Deputy Walsh," he said, "this is unfortunate timing." Megan stopped 3 feet from him. Badge, visible shoulders squared against the wind. "Open the shed." Wade glanced at Cole, then at Claire and Linda coming fast behind. "We are conducting an emergency relocation ahead of the road closure. Animals in rural care cannot always wait for perfect conditions. Your road exemption lists veterinary supervision. Correct. Where is the veterinarian?" Wade's eyes flicked toward the truck, then away. "On call." Claire stepped into the wash of patrol lights, rain shells snapping in the wind, medical bag banging against her hip. "Name them." Wade's smile thinned. "Dr. Sutton, this is already emotional for you." "Name the veterinarian." He did not. Megan held out her hand toward Evan, who had followed from the office with the key ring and the look of a man watching his excuses freeze to death. "Keys." Wade's voice sharpened. "This is a lawful rescue operation." "Then you will enjoy documenting it." Megan took the keys from Evan. "Open the shed, Mr. Carver, or I open it and add obstruction." One of the men by the truck set down a crate. The dog inside barked once, thin and hoarse. Something in Cole's chest pulled tight. Not the old battlefield tension. Worse maybe because this sound came from a place where good people had been told everything was handled. Linda stood near the roll-up door, face, pale eyes fixed on a stack of donation signs leaning against the wall inside. "I made that first lighthouse," she said faintly. "We used to print it on soup labels." Wade turned on her. "Linda, you are confused." Her fingers closed around the tote strap. "No, I was confused. There is a difference." Megan raised the roll-up door. The truth inside did not leap out. It shivered. 6 dogs sat in wire crates along one wall, thin blankets beneath them. Water bowls tipped or frozen at the edges. 2 were old gray, muzzled and silent. One nursing mother lay without puppies, her eyes sunken, her milk swollen and painful. 3 young dogs trembled together in separate crates, too tired to bark. Along the back table were folders, clipboards, medication bottles, and glossy donation flyers showing bright puppies on clean quilts beneath captions about second chances. Cole saw names from Linda's logs. He saw Walter Briggs on a surrender form. He saw Raymond Walker's orchard address on a document labeled Transitional Asset Review. Claire moved past everyone. Her voice changed into clinic mode, low and fast. Blankets, heat, water, photograph before moving. Do not open crates until I check temperament. Linda read labels to Megan. Cole, lift when I say lift. Work entered Cole's hands and steadied them. He carried an old shepherd mix from a crate to Claire's truck, feeling the dog's bones beneath damp fur. The dog wore a faded collar with a brass tag. Molly. His throat closed for one breath. Walter had asked them to tell her he had asked. He did, Cole whispered, not because the dog understood the words, but because he needed them spoken in the world. Then a sound came from Claire's truck, sharp with pain and purpose. Cole turned. Nora stood in the open side door of the heated rear compartment blanket, slipping from her shoulders, injured hind leg barely touching the floor. How she had gotten up, no one knew. Behind her, Tucker strained in the carrier, the old bottle base wedged under his chin, tiny paws scrabbling at the towel as if fury could make him larger. Claire swore and reached for Nora, but the dog took one trembling step toward the shed. "No!" Cole said, already moving. He reached her and dropped to one knee in the snow, both hands gentle against her chest. Nora pushed weakly against him, eyes fixed on the crated dogs and the scent of mother's fear, cold metal. "No," he said again, quieter. "Not this time." She trembled beneath his hands. Wade spoke behind him. "That dog is unstable. This is exactly the kind of emotional mishandling that creates danger." Cole did not look back. He kept his eyes on Nora. "You did enough," he told her. "You got Tucker out. You kept your babies alive. You brought us here. Now people do the part people should have done sooner." Nora's breath came fast, white in the air. Her amber eyes searched his face with terrible effort. For years, Cole had replayed the moment Bishop moved forward, and he did not stop him. He had told himself that love was a liability because love ran ahead of orders. But Nora was not Bishop. This was not that courtyard, and he was not trapped inside the old mistake unless he chose to live there. "Stay," he whispered, not as a command, as a promise. Nora leaned into him, not collapsing, yielding. Claire wrapped the blanket around her, one hand firm under the dog's chest. Tucker made a squeak from the carrier and bit down on the plastic base with all the authority of a creature who had crossed a forest and expected adults to finish properly. Megan had watched only long enough to understand. Then she turned back to Wade. "You said lawful transport. I have a vulnerable adult locked behind your office animals in compromised condition, disputed ownership records, medication, irregularities, and a road exemption filed under false veterinary supervision." Wade's face finally lost its pleasant shape. Without the smile, he looked smaller, colder. "You do not understand what this organization provides for the county." "I understand enough to stop the truck." Backup lights appeared at the entrance to the lot, another patrol vehicle crawling through snow. Behind it came County Animal Control late. Tired and welcome, Wade tried one last performance. These animals would have died without harbor light. Linda looked at the nursing mother without puppies. Some of them almost died with it. Megan stepped closer. "Mr. Carver, put your hands where I can see them." Wade moved toward his SUV instead. Cole saw it. Megan saw it too. Cole stood in his path without touching him. Wade looked up, breathing harder now, snow melting in his polished hair. "You have no idea what you are interfering with. People wanted easy answers. I gave them a system." Cole's voice came low. You sold them a clean story and hid the cost in locked rooms. The storm was louder than both of them for 1 second. Then Megan took Wade's arm and read him his rights with the same steady voice she had used in the motel office. He did not confess. He asked for his attorney, which Megan later said was the first honest sentence he had managed all night. By the time the dogs were loaded into warm vehicles and Raymond was wrapped in a real coat, dawn had not arrived, but the black sky had begun to thin. Raymond sat in Claire's truck beside Nora, one shaking hand resting on her head, the old bottle base in his lap. Tucker had somehow wedged himself against the man's sleeve, exhausted and triumphant. Raymond looked down at him with wonder fragile enough for snow to break. That little fool, he whispered. Cole stood by the open door, wet to the bone. Runs in the family, apparently. Raymond laughed once, weak and real, while behind them Wade Carver sat in the patrol car, and the shed lights revealed what kindness had finally dragged out of hiding. Morning came slowly to Port Angeles, pale and wet, with low clouds snagged on the Olympic ridges in the harbor below, shining like hammered tin under a reluctant sun. Coho View Motor Inn looked smaller after the storm, which seemed unfair. Places where harm has hidden should look enormous in daylight. Instead, it sat behind yellow tape with its tired neon sign, dark, its office windows fogged, its parking lot tracked by tires, boots, paws, and the marks of people who had arrived late but not too late. Megan Walsh had not slept. Her parka hung open. Her cap was shoved into one pocket, and her red notebook was already half full of names. Times, medications, license plates, and the kind of details that made outrage useful in court. Cole had spent the last hour carrying crates holding blankets around shaking dogs and watching Claire move from animal to animal with a calm so practical it became its own form of mercy. Raymond sat in the warmed veterinary truck with Nora's head on his lap. He looked wrecked and alive, which Cole had learned could be a magnificent combination. Tucker slept inside a carrier near Raymond's boots, the bottle base tucked against his belly. The other puppies had settled into the warm darkness of the truck, small mouths twitching around dreams of milk. Linda stood by the shed table reading labels aloud while Megan photographed each folder. Her voice broke when she found her own initials on an intake checklist from 2 years earlier. "I signed that," she said. Snowmelt dripped from the roof in steady ticks. Megan did not look up from the camera. "Then you can explain what it meant before Wade changed what it became." "That does not make it clean." "No," Megan said. "It makes it useful." Linda nodded, crying without hiding it now. Useful was not forgiveness. It was better than self-pity. Paige Bennett joined by video from Claire's tablet balanced on a crate of donated leashes. She appeared in a sweatshirt, glasses low on her nose, dark hair pulled into a loose knot, 3 monitors glowing behind her like a small, nervous city. She spoke fast, precise, and with the barely controlled fury of a woman watching corrupted data confess. "I have time-stamped edits for Nora, Molly, and 7 other animals. Same admin login, same pattern, owner incapacity, voluntary surrender, emergency transport, donor placement." The system did not make mistakes. A human used it like a broom. The broom had swept toward Walker Orchard. That was the next fight. Among Wade's documents, Megan found a packet labeled Transitional Property Stewardship Agreement, with Raymond's name typed neatly beneath paragraphs thick enough to bury a man standing upright. It claimed Harbor Light could assume temporary management of the orchard to recover care costs and protect animals housed there. Raymond had not signed the last page. He had written one word across the margin instead. No. The letters were shaky, but they stood. Megan photographed it, bagged it, and called the county clerk before the office opened. I need a hold flagged on any filing tied to Raymond Walker or Walker Orchard, she said into the phone voice, even eyes, not even a little even. Yes, today. Yes, before breakfast. No, I am not being colorful. Cole sat beside Raymond while Claire checked him again. The old man's fingers kept finding Nora's ears as if counting her back into the world. He told me I owed him for kindness, Raymond said. That was the trick. If a man believes care is a debt, he will sign nearly anything to stop being a burden. Cole looked toward the shed where dogs were being loaded for treatment. You did not sign the orchard, only because Ruth hated paperwork and taught me to read slowly out of spite. The corner of Cole's mouth moved. Raymond closed his eyes. Nora was pregnant. I knew something was wrong when Wade wanted her removed before Claire could examine her. I tried to stall. Next morning, men came, said it was settled. Said I had agreed. I put the note in the bottle because Nora would keep Ruth's things near the pups. Did not know which pup would live, did not know any would. His voice thinned. That boy made it. Cole looked at Tucker sleeping under a towel. He is very smug about it. By mid-morning, Walter Briggs arrived at the motel in the old pickup with one dim headlight moving as if every joint had filed a complaint. He stopped when he saw Molly in the back of Claire's truck. The old shepherd mix lifted her gray muzzle. For a moment, Walter did not breathe. Then he made a sound that was not a word and not quite a sob. Molly tried to stand. Claire said, "Slow," to both of them and received obedience from neither. Walter knelt in slush beside the truck ramp. Molly pressed her head into his chest with the tired certainty of a creature who had never stopped knowing where home belonged. Walter held her leash in one hand and the dog in the other, shaking so hard Cole had to turn away. Linda watched both hands over her mouth. That reunion did what documents could not. It made Wade's system visible as theft not only of animals, but of the daily companionship that kept lonely people tethered to mourning. Linda walked to Megan and said, "I will testify." Megan capped her pen. "Good. Even if it makes me look foolish. It may." Linda nodded. "Good." The day kept moving. Dogs to clinic. Raymond to hospital for evaluation after Claire informed him that refusal would be considered a hobby, not a medical plan. Nora and the puppies to Claire's heated treatment room. Cole drove behind them through streets washed clean by rain and too bright for what had happened. He believed the dangerous part was over because men often mistook arrest for ending. At the clinic, Tucker began to cough. It was small at first, a wet hitch under the towel. Claire heard it from across the room, her head snapped up. The puppy coughed again, then shivered so violently the bottle base rolled from his paws. His gums had gone pale. Claire lifted him and her voice became quiet enough to frighten Cole more than shouting could have. "I need heat support and fluids now." Cole stood frozen beside the exam table as Tucker's tiny chest worked too fast, then not fast enough. Nora lifted her head from her bedding and gave a low, desperate whine. Raymond, still wrapped in a hospital blanket he had not yet agreed to wear, properly whispered Ruth's name. Cole looked at the puppy who had crossed a forest, carried a message, found a man, saved a mother, and now seemed suddenly small enough for the world to misplace. The old battlefield returned in a bright instant. A wrong call, Bishop moving ahead, a life paid for his. Cole gripped the edge of the table until his knuckles whitened and Claire looked up at him. "Stay with me, Cole. Not there. Here." Dawn waited outside Claire Sutton's clinic without entering gray and damp over Port Angeles, while the exam room glowed too white for anyone's comfort. Rain slipped down the windows in narrow lines. The building smelled of disinfectant wet dog. Warmed formula coffee burned past usefulness and the metallic edge of fear. Tucker lay on a heated pad beneath a soft towel, an IV line taped to one front leg so small the tape looked enormous. His black and tan fur had dried in uneven tufts, one ear still trying to stand as if professionalism might help. Claire worked with her sleeves pushed up and her jaw set, checking temperature, gums, lungs, fluids, glucose, breath. She gave orders to Cole because he was available and because panic needed chores if it was not going to become useless. Hold this, warm that towel, do not hover over his nose, count with me. Cole counted. He had counted ammunition once, steps to a door, seconds between radio bursts, breaths from men who were bleeding and trying to pretend they were not. Counting a puppy's breaths felt like trying to hold fog in his hands. Nora lay on a low padded mat nearby, weak but awake, amber eyes fixed on Tucker. The other puppies slept in a warmed nesting box, fed, cleaned, offended by the world in the ordinary way of newborns. Raymond sat in a chair against the wall, refusing the emergency room until Claire could spare someone to bully him properly. A thermal blanket covered his knees. In his lap he held the old bottle base and the repaired calf bottle, now cleaned but still scratched, the RW initials catching the clinic light. Linda paced in the hallway, making phone calls to people she had avoided for months. Walter sat with Molly in the waiting room, one hand buried in the dog's fur as if he feared she might vanish if he relaxed. Megan moved between the clinic office and the parking lot, building a case out of signatures, photos, and carefully chosen words. Cole stayed beside Tucker because Claire had told him to, and because every part of him wanted to run from the old feeling gathering in his chest. The puppy's fever climbed before it broke. His body seemed too small to contain the fight. He whimpered once, not loud, and Nora answered with a sound so low it seemed to come from the floorboards. Cole leaned over the table. Come on, Tucker. You have been rude to everyone for 2 days. Do not develop manners now. Claire did not smile, but her eyes flicked toward him. Good, keep talking. He likes criticism. Then criticize. Cole placed one finger near Tucker's paw, not touching the IV tape. Your bottle technique is terrible. Your navigation is questionable. You smell like old straw and bad decisions. Also, your ear lacks commitment. Tucker's paw twitched. Cole looked at Claire. That counts. It counts as a twitch. You run your clinic, I will run morale. Hours loosened into fragments. Paige sent another packet of records. Megan came in to say the county had frozen any Walker Orchard filings pending investigation. Raymond cried silently when he heard that, then pretended his eyes were reacting to clinic dust. Linda brought coffee and a bag of muffins from the diner, though nobody had appetite enough to deserve them. Walter came to the exam room door, once Molly leaning against his leg. He is the little one, he asked. Cole nodded. Walter removed his veteran cap and held it against his chest. Molly and I are asking the Lord for him. Cole looked at the old man, at the dog who had been stolen from him and returned, and something inside him made a sound without moving. Thanks. It was not enough. It was what he had. Near noon, Claire told him to sit before he fell into expensive equipment. He took the chair beside Raymond. For a while, the two men watched Tucker breathe. Raymond rubbed his thumb over the RW carved into the bottle. I hear Bishop was a fine dog. Cole's whole body tightened. Who told you? Claire, long ago. Not details. Enough. Cole stared at the heated pad. He was better than fine. Most good dogs are. Rain clicked softly against the glass. Cole swallowed. I sent him forward. Raymond did not rush in with comfort. Old men who had survived regret knew better. Cole kept looking at Tucker. There was a delay, a doorway. I thought I had the pattern. Bishop moved before I corrected, took the blast. Everyone said he saved me. His hands curled. They said it like living was the clean part. Raymond nodded slowly. Being saved can feel like a debt collector moved into your ribs. Cole looked at him then. The old man smiled without humor. Navy taught me machines. Life taught me debt. Ruth taught me most debts of love are not meant to be paid back. They are meant to be passed forward without making a shrine out of the wound. Cole's eyes burned. He hated that. He needed it. Tucker coughed again and both men leaned forward. Claire checked him, listened, adjusted the towel, then waited. The puppy breathed once, twice, a deeper third. His tiny tongue appeared and licked his nose with dramatic exhaustion. Claire's shoulders dropped for the first time in hours. "There you are," she whispered. Tucker opened one eye, saw Cole, and made a scratchy little complaint that sounded personally offended by medicine. Cole laughed. It came out broken and startled, but it was laughter. Nora thumped her tail once against the mat, too tired for more. Raymond pressed the bottle to his chest. Linda cried in the hallway. Walter said something that might have been amen, and might have been a thank you to every saint he knew. By evening, Tucker's fever had started down. He nursed for a few seconds, then fell asleep with his paw on Cole's finger instead of the bottle. Cole did not move for nearly 20 minutes. Claire dimmed the lights. "He will need careful watching." "I can watch." "I know you can watch. Can you keep him?" Cole looked at her sharply. She lifted both hands. "I am asking the question everyone in this building is pretending not to ask." Raymond looked down at Tucker and smiled through exhaustion. "That pup chose you when he crossed the ridge." Cole shook his head. "He followed a scent. He found the nearest warm place." "Maybe," Raymond said. "God has used stranger maps." Tucker sighed in sleep, small body heavy against Cole's hand. Cole thought of Bishop, of the brass buckle at his wrist, of all the years he had kept love outside by calling the door discipline. The clinic hummed around him. Rain softened against the windows. Nora closed her eyes because for one moment she trusted someone else to stay awake. Cole did not answer Raymond. Not yet. But when Claire brought a fresh towel, he wrapped Tucker with both hands, careful as prayer, and did not pretend he was only helping until morning. 3 days later, sunlight broke over Walker Orchard in a thin, clean spill, turning the wet grass silver and lighting the old apple trees as if each bare branch had been drawn again by a kinder hand. The storm had stripped leaves-filled ruts and pushed one section of fence nearly flat, but morning did what mornings sometimes do without permission. It made the battered place look possible. Raymond came home in Claire's veterinary truck because he refused an ambulance once the hospital released him, and because he claimed no man should return to his own farm in anything that lacked dog hair. He wore a thick plaid coat Cole had found in the farmhouse mudroom, his navy watch cap pulled low over white hair, his face thinner but sharper, now that the wrong medicines were out of him. Nora rode in the heated rear compartment on deep blankets with her injured leg wrapped cleanly, and the puppies tucked along her side. Tucker slept in a carrier beside her, recovering, unimpressed by medical concern and in possession of the repaired calf bottle because attempts to separate him from it had failed at a level best described as spiritual. Cole followed in his truck, driving slowly over the slick lane. He told himself he was there to help unload, fix the pump house door, check. The locks carry bags of food, maybe split wood if time allowed. Temporary work, useful work, the kind with edges. Walker Orchard did not believe him. The farmhouse waited with peeling white paint, a porch step cracked by ice gutters, bent windows cold, and Ruth Walker's blue curtains still hanging in the kitchen, with small yellow flowers faded nearly to ghosts. Inside, dust lay on the table. The air smelled of closed rooms, old apples from the cellar, wood smoke long gone, and the faint sweetness of a life interrupted rather than finished. Raymond stopped in the kitchen doorway, one hand on Cole's arm. Ruth would say the floor needs sweeping. Claire, carrying a box of medication, looked around. Sweeping plumbing heat and an exorcism of paperwork. Raymond considered this. She did enjoy a list. Cole helped him to a chair near the stove, though Raymond protested until Cole said he was not helping, only interfering with gravity. Gravity has been getting above itself, Raymond said, then sat. The house filled slowly with people who did not make speeches. Megan arrived in her county parka with forms, contacts, and the expression of a woman who had been personally insulted by bureaucracy before breakfast. Linda came with the Harbor Light tote, now packed with organized copies instead of shame. Walter brought old towels, a cordless drill, and Molly, who sniffed the kitchen, sneezed and decided the place was acceptable. Paige joined on Claire's tablet from her office, hair pinned with a pencil, screens glowing behind her, while she built a shared folder and named one spreadsheet Carver Cleanup before Megan made her change it to something admissible. A young reporter called twice. Megan ignored the calls. "No victory laps while animals need water," she said. So the day became tasks. Walter fixed the backlatch. Cole repaired the pump house door and cut out every twisted length of wire. Linda sorted animal records at the kitchen table and stopped now and then when a name hurt her. Claire checked Nora's wound and taught Raymond how to rotate the puppies safely. Megan called the county, then the state attorney's office, then someone whose title sounded too long to fit on a business card. By late afternoon, the idea had formed without anyone announcing it. Harbor Light had failed because it became a polished story with locked rooms behind it. Walker Orchard could become the opposite, a temporary haven for animals belonging to veterans, widows, and older neighbors who needed help before a crisis became surrender. Transparent records, veterinary sign-off, witness transfers. No dog moved because one smooth man said kindness required it. Walker Light Haven, Linda suggested softly, looking at Ruth's curtains. Raymond made a face. "Sounds like a lamp store." Walter nodded. "Better than Carver Cleanup." Paige's voice came from the tablet. "I resent losing that name." Megan did not look up. Law often disappoints artists. Cole stood by the kitchen window watching water drip from the barn roof in bright threads. The idea was not small. Permits, insurance, volunteers, money, a roof that did not leak into feed bins. He should have stepped away. He had his own cabin, his own quiet, his own carefully maintained emptiness. Then Tucker toddled out from Nora's blanket, wobbling on paws too large for him, gripping the calf bottle by the nipple. He crossed the kitchen with the solemn focus of a judge. Carrying a verdict, bumped into Cole's left boot and dropped the bottle into it. Everyone saw. Nobody spoke. Raymond leaned back in his chair. "That is rent." Claire coughed into one hand. Linda laughed first, a cracked little sound that surprised her. Walter joined, dry and reluctant. Even Megan turned toward the window as if checking whether a smile was legally permitted. Cole stared down at Tucker. "Temporary," he said. The puppy sat swayed and looked pleased with the quality of his argument. That evening, Cole drove back to his cabin alone. The road between his place and the orchard seemed shorter than before, as if a puppy had dragged not only a bottle through the woods, but a bridge. The cabin looked the same when he entered stove table Boots' chair by the window hallway leading to the small drawer he had not opened in months. Cole stood there until the quiet stopped feeling like safety and began to feel like a room waiting for its owner to admit something. He opened the drawer. Bishop's working collar lay wrapped in faded cloth, black leather, worn smooth where the dog had carried duty, trust, and breath. The brass buckle missing from it had lived on Cole's wrist for years. He lifted the collar with both hands. Heat dust, blue door, white blast. Bishop moving. Cole closing his eyes too late. "I'm sorry," he said. The words were small. They had always been small. This time they were not locked away. He brought the collar to Walker Orchard before sunset and placed it on Ruth's kitchen windowsill beside the cleaned calf bottle. Loss on one side, return on the other. Nora watched from her blankets. Tucker waddled over at exactly the wrong holy speed, sniffed Bishop's collar, sneezed on it, then curled beneath the sill with the bottle between his paws. Cole looked down. That was disrespectful. Raymond opened one eye from his chair. Blessings come in humble forms. He sneezed. Small clergy use what they have. Cole shook his head. He smiled anyway. The next morning was adoption day for the puppies who were strong enough to be listed, though Claire insisted that listed did not mean leaving yet. Raymond opened the kitchen door to let in cold air and a visitor from the county. Tucker woke, seized the bottle, stumbled past Nora, ignored three humans who had already begun making sentimental noises, and ran straight to Cole's boots. He sat on Cole's foot with the bottle in his mouth, one ear up, one ear folded, breathing as if he had completed a long and necessary journey. Cole looked around the room, every face waited. The final morning of that first week opened clear over Walker Orchard with a soft blue sky above the Olympic foothills and sunlight resting on every wet fence rail as if the storm had left small apologies behind. Port Angeles moved below in ordinary rhythms trucks on wet pavement gulls, crying near the harbor church bells carrying faintly through cold air. But the old farm no longer felt separate from the world. Its doors were open. Its porch had been swept. A new hasp shone on the pump house. Towels hung from a line near the stove and the kitchen smelled of coffee. Puppy milk sawdust, Claire's antiseptic, and the oatmeal cookies Linda insisted were not good but were morally available. Harbor Light Rescue was under investigation. Wade Carver had been removed from control of the organization pending charges. The county had frozen every disputed filing tied to Raymond Walker, Walter Briggs, and the other owners whose animals had passed through Wade's soft language and locked rooms. Some dogs had already gone home. Molly slept beside Walter's chair again. Her cloudy eye half closed, her nose pointed toward the kitchen in case forgiveness arrived with bacon. Other animals remained under Claire's care until proper homes could be verified. Nothing was neat. Justice rarely swept the floor when it entered. It brought forms, phone calls, medicine schedules, angry relatives, embarrassed donors, and a deputy who used official vocabulary as if it were a crowbar. Still, by that morning, everyone could feel the lie losing its grip. Raymond sat near the stove with Nora at his feet, her injured legs stretched carefully on a folded blanket. She was thin, still watchful, still deciding which humans deserved the honor of being ignored. Her puppies slept in a wooden crate lined with clean quilts. Tucker was not sleeping. Tucker had business. He marched under the kitchen table with the old calf bottle in his mouth. Bumped Linda's shoe, rejected it for unclear reasons, circled Walter's boot, considered Molly's tail, wisely reconsidered, then arrived at Cole Mercer and dropped the bottle on his foot. "Again," Cole said. Tucker sat down with a small grunt as if legal arguments exhausted him. Raymond sipped coffee from a chipped mug. "You could stop resisting. The puppy has filed repeatedly. He is staying with his mother until Claire clears him." Claire, writing dosages at the counter, did not look up. "And after that..." Cole glanced at the puppy. Tucker's one upright ear gave him the look of a recruit unimpressed by command structure. "After that, we will review placement." Megan closed a folder at the table. "That means yes in former SEAL dialect." Paige's voice came from the tablet. "Please add that to the shared glossary." Linda laughed without covering her mouth. The sound warmed the room more than the stove. Walker Light Haven began that day not with a sign, but with a notebook. Linda wrote the first entry in careful blue ink, every animal, every owner, every temporary placement visible to 3 people outside the organization. Claire added medical check columns. Megan added witness requirements. Paige built the digital version and threatened to color code crimes if anyone let her. Walter volunteered to check gates and complained that retirement had been misrepresented to him. Raymond offered the East Barn the Orchard water line and Ruth's old rule from a note Cole found taped inside a blue tin of spare bottle nipples, warm first. Feed slow, do not rush, love. Cole read the note twice. He thought of Tucker crossing the ridge with the bottle, Nora lowering her head in the pump house, Raymond writing a plea with shaking hands, Linda choosing truth after silence, Walter keeping a leash because hope sometimes looked foolish until it was needed again. Maybe healing was not one grand moment. Maybe it was instructions. Warm first, feed slow, repair the latch, make the call, keep records where light can reach them. 2 weeks later, the first official sign went up at the end of the lane. Walker Light Haven. Temporary care for veterans, elders, and their animals. No surrender without witnesses. Raymond said it still sounded like a lamp store, but he stood beneath it with Nora sitting beside him, and his eyes shone when nobody was cruel enough to mention it. Cole came by every morning before sunrise to split wood-check fencing and pretend he was not looking for Tucker. This pretense survived poorly. Tucker grew fast as German Shepherd puppies do when love and food conspire against furniture. His black saddle darkened his tan legs, lengthened, and both ears eventually stood, though the left one kept a rebellious tilt during important conversations. He learned to trot beside Cole's boot, to sleep under his chair, to steal Walter's work gloves, and to carry the old calf bottle whenever the room became too serious. Cole lasted 3 days after Claire cleared him for adoption. On the 4th, he filled out the paperwork in Megan's presence because apparently everyone had developed a sense of humor about witnesses. Raymond signed as foster transfer witness. Claire signed medical clearance. Linda cried on the form and had to start that page again. Tucker contributed by chewing the corner of the clipboard. "Management material," Raymond said. Cole took Tucker home that evening. The cabin did not become noisy all at once. It changed by small occupations. A food bowl near the stove, a blanket under the table, muddy paw marks by the back door, the old bottle on the windowsill beside Bishop's collar when Tucker was not dragging it somewhere inconvenient. Cole still woke some nights with Bishop's last moment bright behind his eyes. Grief did not vanish because a puppy entered the room. It changed shape. It had somewhere to sit. On quiet mornings, Cole would touch Bishop's collar, then rest his hand on Tucker's warm back. And the two loves did not fight. One had saved his life. The other had asked him to live it. Spring came late to the orchard, opening apple blossoms like pale hands. Nora healed enough to limp proudly beside Raymond. Molly gained weight. Linda trained new volunteers with a gentleness sharpened by honesty. Walter told people who were afraid to ask for help that shame was a cold blanket and they should bring the dog anyway. Megan kept showing up with forms and leaving with cookies she claimed were evidence. Claire pretended not to be attached to everyone and failed visibly. Cole left his cabin door open more often. Not wide. He was still himself, but open. One evening he sat on the porch with Tucker asleep across his boots, heavier now, paws twitching in some dream of impossible errands. Across the valley, Walker Light Haven glowed in the lowering sun on Cole's windowsill. Ruth's bottle and Bishop's collar rested side by side. The old grief remained, but it no longer owned every room. Cole placed one hand on Tucker's ribs and felt the steady beat beneath fur and bone. Some pleas do not come as thunder. They come as a puppy in the rain, a bottle too old for the journey, a note folded small by a frightened man, a door opened before the tracks disappear. Cole looked toward the woods where Tucker had first emerged, and for the first time in years, he did not listen only for danger, he listened for life. Sometimes God sends help in a form so small we almost miss it. A phone call we keep delaying, a neighbor whose porch light has gone dark, a memory asking to be forgiven, a wounded place in our own heart that needs warmth before it can accept love again. Cole thought closing his life would protect him from more pain, but Tucker showed him that love is not the enemy of loss. Love is how loss becomes useful. Raymond, Linda, Walter, Claire, Megan. Nora and Tucker remind us that mercy is often practical. It is a clean towel, a signed witness line, a ride through bad weather, a hand that stays steady when another life is shaking. If this story touched your heart, comment Amen. And tell us what small mercy helped you keep going. Share this with someone who needs to remember that it is never too late for a door to open. Subscribe for more stories of faith, loyalty, and second chances. May God bless you, keep you, and bring warmth gently to the places you thought would always stay cold.